And Caden, I want to start because I do know this about Caden. Caden has a medical condition that sidetracked your football career. Walk us through that, the time frame, what happened to you, and walk us through that.
Yeah, so right around late February, I was having some issues in the weight room. I was getting really lightheaded, and one day I actually collapsed. And so obviously the training staff do what they do, and they start running some tests, trying to figure out what's going on. So you name it, CT scans, MRIs. I was in and out of the doctor's office for like a month. And on March 24th of 2023, they had figured everything out. They had figured out I had a mild heart condition that was, non-fatal or anything, and that I could play with. But they had seen something in one of the MRIs in my C1 cervical spine. They didn't think much of it. So they sent me down to the neurosurgeon in Denver, just to precautionary, they wanted, I thought I was going to get cleared because they didn't think anything of it. And so I get down there, get in the office, and basically he just drops this bomb on me, right? That what I have in my neck is known as a cavernous malformation. And so
cavernous malformation?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so let me break that down for what it actually is, and I'll tell you what he told me. And so what he said is, these cavernous malformations, they're hard to predict, and they have the capability to rupture or bleed. And because of where mine is at in my C1 cervical spine, if mine is to rupture, I will lose function of everything, below the neck, including my respiratory system. So basically, if this thing ruptures, I'll suffocate to death and, I'll die. And then, so at that point in time, I ask, what are options? What do you do? He's like, well, you really have two. He tells me, first off, you can have surgery. And I was like, okay, so what's the thing with surgery? What's the deal with surgery? He's like, well, there's not lack of risk. It's a risky surgery because of where it's at. So I was like, well, can you break those risks down for me? He said, yeah. The first thing he tells me, he's like, there's a small chance, it's small, but there's a chance you could become, like a quadriplegic. You could lose function of everything, because of, again, where it's at. Then he goes in to tell me that, you could lose function of certain limbs and stuff. And then, you could have neurological damage. And so what does that mean? And I'll just give you the example he gave me, right? So he put his hand behind his head like this, and he's like, we all know that where my hand is, even though I can't see it, I know where my hand is. I know exactly where it's at, and so I could lose that ability. I could lose that function, which they're not things you really want to hear as a 20-year-old kid. Like, those are all like pretty scary things. And then I was like, well, so what's option two? He's like, well, you can play the odds and hope that thing doesn't rupture in your neck. And so basically I have, a ticking time bomb in my neck right now. And so after that, I was declared medically ineligible.
The football program tells you, hey, you can't play here anymore. It's too high risk. And that makes sense to you and your family, and you probably didn't want to play anymore knowing the risk, correct?
Obviously I understood the risk, but with my high school career going through knee injuries left and right, I had sacrificed so much to be where I was at Colorado. I'd given up and battled back from so much to actually get there, just to say, like, because I have another situation, another adversity rise, to say that I didn't want to play anymore that's not the case. So I wanted to try to figure out a way, if possible, to play again.
And you play for Coach Hart as well? You're playing inside linebacker?
Yes, sir.
And so you tell Coach Hart what's going on, and then, but you say you never got an opportunity to talk with Deion.
Yeah, so obviously I expressed, I relayed the information that I was given to Coach Hart directly. And one of the first things I said to him is I'd like to have a conversation with the head football coach. And as a man, I wanted to tell him those things. I wanted him to hear it coming from me and not, some third party, whether it be the training staff or Coach Hart himself. And then I wanted to talk, courses of action, where do we go from here? But because the training staff had the information, they had asked me things like, who do you want to know? We can give this information as long as you say it's okay. So yeah, I don't want pity. I don't want that. I don't want this team to be successful. But I would like Deion to know, and I'd like to have an eventual conversation with him about everything. And so he was directly told from Coach Hart and from the training staff, what was going on.
But you never got that meeting?
No. So actually, after I was diagnosed, I flew home that day. Mom wanted her son home, and then it came back, and the next week I expressed that I wanted that conversation. So I really tried for like three and a half weeks to get a meeting with him, a sit-down meeting with him, and we had stuff scheduled. And actually on April 30th, I sent Coach Hart a text saying, hey, when can we meet with him? So that day, he's like, we'll shoot for Thursday. So you're looking at Thursday, May 4th. And I haven't really heard anything from him. So I texted him on that Thursday early in the morning, hey, are we going to be able to make today work? And he sends me a text, no, he's out of town. And that happened, a few times. And so at that point, it became very clear that, for whatever reason, Deion didn't want to have a conversation with me, and he was kind of, refusing to meet with me.
And so what were you hoping to accomplish in that conversation with Deion?
Well, like I said earlier, as a man, I wanted him to hear those things from me and not from somebody else. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, I wanted to talk, where my status was, because obviously at that point in time I couldn't play, but, I'd worked hard to be there. And I wanted to help out in any way. I wanted to be around and help support the team. And, those are basically the two things that I wanted to talk about.